Welcome to Recovery Works Computer Newbies 1. In this class, you'll learn basic computer skills, such as navigating the computer desktop, using Windows buttons, and saving files. After the computer is turned on, a login screen will appear. At the login screen, type the password, and then click the arrow or press the Enter key on the keyboard. Note that each computer has its own password. Because you're using a personal computer, also called a PC, the operating system on your computer is called Windows. Windows is a series of operating systems developed by Microsoft. Each version of Windows includes a graphical user interface with a desktop that allows users to view files and folders in Windows. Once you've logged in, you're viewing the Windows desktop. I'm using the version of Windows called Windows 7. You may also be using Windows 7, or you may be using Windows 10. But regardless of the version of Windows you are using, the desktop will display and will allow you to view files and folders. Now let's talk more about the Windows desktop. The small pictures on the Windows desktop are called icons. Those represent files and folders, as well as programs and some other items. All Windows desktops will always display the recycle bin. Your computer manufacturer might have added other icons to the desktop, and if additional programs were added to the computer after it was purchased, there may also be other icons on the desktop. I probably have more icons on my computer than you do, and my icons may be in a different position. Because my computer has the Microsoft Office suite installed, I have the icons for the programs in the suite. Those include Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft PowerPoint. Later in the course, we'll launch Microsoft Word so you can begin to understand how to use the Microsoft Office programs. You'll also see the taskbar at the bottom of your Windows desktop. The pictures on the taskbar are called shortcuts. Each Windows desktop displays the Start button and the Windows Explorer shortcuts. Note that on the right-hand side of the taskbar, a computer will always display the time and the date. From the computer desktop, you can launch the types of programs you want to use, and you'll use your mouse to do that. Notice as you move your mouse on the desktop, a pointer displays. To launch a program using icons on the desktop, you would move your mouse to the icon, for example, Microsoft Word 2010, and you would double-click, meaning that you would press the left mouse button quickly 2 times. To launch programs from the taskbar is similar. The only difference is if you were to launch a program from the taskbar, you would move to the shortcut, but you would click just 1 time. Because your taskbar may contain different shortcuts than mine, we will be using the desktop to launch programs today. All of the tasks and programs that you work with in Windows will display as a window. So it's important to understand the Windows buttons that are at the top right of each window. Let's learn how to use those buttons. We'll begin by using a web browser. We're currently looking at the Windows desktop. To find information on the World Wide Web or the web, we'll need to use a web browser. The Internet Explorer web browser comes with personal computers, and another popular web browser, Google Chrome, can be loaded onto the computer. Because PCs come with Internet Explorer loaded, we'll use that web browser. To launch Internet Explorer, which may be in a different position on your desktop than mine, move your mouse to the icon for Internet Explorer and then double-click the left mouse button. You'll see a blue busy wheel and then the window for Internet Explorer will open. When you launch Internet Explorer, a home page will display in Internet Explorer. Mine is the COVA home page because I'm recording this at COVA. You may have a different home page, but that's fine. We want to focus on the Windows button on the top right of the window. So no matter what page that is displayed in Internet Explorer, you'll be able to follow me. We offer an internet class for you to learn more about the internet and the web. But for today, we want to use this window to demonstrate how Windows buttons work. Remember, all of the programs that you launch in Windows will have these 3 Windows buttons. At the top right of each window, there are 3 Windows buttons. As I hover my mouse over the X, I'll see a Close screen tip that explains what this button does. Moving to the left, the next button is called the Restore Down button. And then, as I hover over this button, I can see that this is called the Minimize button. Let's begin by talking about the Minimize button. Sometimes you may decide that you want to work in another window, but at a later point return to the window you have open. In that case, you can use Minimize. The Minimize button will shrink the window down to the taskbar, and when you're ready to use it again, you can find the shortcut on the taskbar and click. Go ahead and click on the Minimize button. You can now see your desktop. Notice in the taskbar, the Internet Explorer shortcut is displayed, and it has a tile displayed behind it, indicating that the window is hidden. To open the Internet Explorer window again, move your mouse pointer to the Internet Explorer icon and click one time. The window is now opened, and the window is maximized, meaning that it is expanded to its full size. You can minimize a maximized window, or you can restore down a window. Restore down is used if you want to keep the window open, but make it a smaller size so you can see other programs and icons on your computer. Move to the Restore Down button and click. Notice that the window is smaller. Your window may be a different size and it may be in a different position than my window. The window is restored down to the size that the last person who restored it left it. Next, I'll show you how to move and then how to resize a restored down window. To move the window, move your mouse to the area called the title bar. That's at the very top of the window above any tabs that display. You want to make sure that your mouse cursor looks like mine. It displays as a pointer. Next, press and hold down your left mouse button, keep it pressed down, and begin dragging the window. This is referred to as clicking and dragging. Notice when you use your mouse, you use your left mouse button. There are times you may use the right mouse button, but typically you'll use the left mouse button. To resize a window, the mouse cursor should display as a double-headed arrow. If you move your mouse to any border on the window, for example the top border, notice that a 2-headed arrow displays. You have to be very precise in your position of the mouse for the 2-headed arrow to display. It displays at the top of the window and the bottom of the window, as well as the left side of the window and the right side of the window. Let's change the width of the window. Move your mouse into position, as I have mine, on the right-hand border until you see a double-headed arrow. Next, click and drag with your left mouse button and move the window to the right. You have now changed the width. Let's try changing the height. Move your mouse to the top border until a double-headed arrow displays, and then click and hold down and drag the mouse down. Notice that changes the height. To change the width and height at the same time, you must move your mouse to a corner of the window until a double-headed arrow displays. For example, I can move my mouse to the top right corner, and when a double-headed arrow displays, I want to move this diagonally. I can move it up to make it larger or down to make it smaller. It's important that you understand how to move windows. so that you can see other icons or windows on your screen. So once again, remember to move a window, move to the title bar and click and drag. To resize a window, you can move to any border, whether it's on the top, bottom, left, or right, or you can move to a corner. I'm going to resize mine and make it smaller. Next, let's talk about the Maximize button. Notice in this window that is restored down, if you hover your mouse over the middle button, that button is called Maximize. You may remember when the window was maximized or at full size, that middle button was restored down. So a Maximize window is restored down if you click the middle button, whereas a restored down window is maximized if you click the middle button. So that button functions to either restore down or maximize a window. Since the window is restored down, let's click the middle button to maximize the window. And more often than not, when you're working in Windows, you'll want them to be maximized. As I said, any program that you work with in Windows will display as a window. When you're finished with the window, you can close the window. Go ahead and move your mouse to the X and click Close. And now that window is closed. Word is a program that people commonly use on their computers. It's a program that allows you to work with text and allows you to do things like create letters, resumes, tables, reports, and even add graphics to documents. Let's practice what we've learned about launching programs and using Windows buttons using Word. Find the Word icon on your screen. It may be in a different position than mine, but it will display a blue W. Move to the icon, and to launch the program, double-click. If your window is restored down, for example, if it looks like mine, you'll want to make sure you click the middle button so that you're sure it's maximized. So you're looking at a Word window and it's maximized. Notice that the Word window has the same 3 Windows buttons that the Internet Explorer window have. Let's use those buttons again to get a little more practice. Move your mouse to the Minimize button and click. Remember, the Minimize button hides the Word window, but when we want to work with it again, we can move our mouse to the shortcut for Word on the taskbar, go ahead and do that, and then click. Now you can see the window again. If you wanted to restore down this window, you could click the Restore Down, which is the middle button. It is now restored down to a size that you could see other windows. So let's leave the Word window restored down and let's move it so that we can see the icons behind it. And then let's open the Internet Explorer application so we can see how to work when 2 windows are open. If your Word window is blocking your icons, like mine's doing, you'll need to move that window. To do that, remember you'll move to the title bar, and then with the arrow displaying, you'll click and drag with the left mouse button. Now you should have room to see the icons. Take your mouse and move to the Internet Explorer icon and double-click. Your Internet Explorer window will be maximized. In order to see the Word window, let's go ahead and restore down the Internet Explorer window. Move to the middle Restore Down button and click. Now I can see both windows. Your windows may be in a different position or a different size. What I'd like you to do is move or resize the windows. I'm going to move mine so that they are in a similar position to mine and so that you can see a good part of each window. Your windows don't have to display exactly as mine, but you just want to make sure you can see both windows. So for example, if you learned more about the internet and you completed some type of a search and there was information in the Internet Explorer window, you may want to key some of that information into your Word document, and having both windows displayed would allow you to easily see the information you wanted to key. Now, let's say that we no longer need to have Internet Explorer open. We can close that window. Notice that because we have two windows open, we have two sets of Windows buttons. So it's important to make sure that you're closing the Internet Explorer window. So move to Internet Explorer, move to the X and click, and you've now closed that window. Now let's maximize the Word window. Remember, we'll move to the center button, which in a restored down window is called the Maximize button, and then go ahead and click. Now that we've reviewed the Windows desktop and we've opened programs and learned about the three Windows buttons, as well as how to move and resize a window, let's talk more about how the applications on your computer work. Remember that Microsoft Word is part of the Microsoft Office suite. That means that if you learn how to use Word, some of the functions that you use, you will also be able to use in Excel and another Microsoft Office program called PowerPoint. To learn about using Office applications, let's get familiar with the Word screen. Notice at the top of the screen is the title bar. It tells you the program you're in, which is Microsoft Word, and the name of the document. The document is now called Document 1. We'll learn how to save information so that you could give a document a more specific name, such as my resume or my letter. Notice on the left-hand side of the screen, there is a quick access toolbar. That includes commands that you'll need to access quickly because you'll use them quite often. For example, when you get ready to save a file so that you can edit it and work with it again, you'll want to click on the Save button. Notice if you move your mouse and hover it over the Save button, you'll see a Save screen tip. Moving down the screen, you'll notice that tabs are displayed. For example, File, Home, and Insert. As you begin using Word, you most likely will use the Home tab more than any other tab. Notice that the Home tab is divided into different groups, for example, the Clipboard, Font, and Paragraph group. Each of those groups has buttons or commands that you can use as you're working in Word. You'll notice that your screen displays what looks like a piece of paper, and there is an insertion point or a cursor flashing. That indicates when you begin keying where the information will begin. Also notice the status bar that displays. The status bar displays what page you're on. Right now it displays page 1 of 1. And how many words are in the document. Right now it displays 0 words. On the right hand side are view buttons. You'll want to keep the view at print layout view. The other views are not used as commonly. And there's also a zoom button. Currently you are at 100%. That can be changed by clicking the zoom out minus sign button or the zoom in plus sign button. But for this class, you will not need to zoom. Today, we'll create a couple of very basic documents in Word. You can learn more about Word by taking Computer Newbies 2 and the Word 1 and Word 2 classes. Notice that as you move your mouse in the Word screen, instead of a pointer, it generally looks like an I-beam. This is the cursor that the mouse displays when you are working in a document with text. As you're keying, you're not using your mouse, so you can take your mouse and move it, and that will move the I-beam to the side of your document. Let's go ahead and create a very basic to-do list. Go ahead and type to-do list, putting a space, using your space bar, between each word. So key to, and then space, then D-O, and space, and then list. Notice the letter T is capitalized. That is a setting built into Word that will capitalize the first letter of each line. That is called a default. Now let's continue with our document by adding some items to our to-do list. To move to the next line, press Enter. Enter inserts a paragraph space. If you've used any previous versions of Word, you may recall that in those versions you had to press the Enter key 2 times to create the paragraph space. But in this version of Word, you only have to press the Enter key one time. This makes the process of typing faster because you're pressing the Enter key once instead of having to press it twice. So let's add some items to our list. We'll start with grocery store. Make sure you press the space bar between grocery and store and then press Enter after store. If my keying speed is faster than yours, you can always stop the course, key the information, and then once you're caught up, start the course again. Next, we'll type library. And then finally, we'll type computer class, but we're going to purposely type an error so I can show you how easy it is to fix errors inside of Word. Okay, so that's our list. If you key a misspelled word, you'll see a red wavy underline. If you take the word class, you'll learn how to spell check the whole document, but you can also use the technique of fixing a misspelled word by right-clicking on the word. Remember, I had said earlier in the course that you most often are going to use the left mouse button, but the right mouse button will display shortcut menus that allow you to quickly perform some very common commands. Let's go ahead and fix the spelling of computer. Move your mouse, which looks like an I-beam, into the word computer and then right-click. You'll notice that the computer gives you suggested spellings at the top of the small shortcut menu that displays. You want to make your selection using your left mouse button. Move to the word computer and left-click, and you'll see that that word is fixed. Next, move your insertion point after the word class by moving the I-beam and then clicking. Notice you can move your mouse out of the way and the insertion point flashes. So we have created information in Word. This information is in the computer's memory, but we haven't saved the information. If this is a file that you want to save, you'll have to complete the process of saving. In this class, to do that, you'll use the flash drive. The flash drive is also called the USB drive. To use the USB drive, you'll need to insert it into a USB port on your computer. The picture shows a USB drive being inserted into a USB port. USB ports can be found on different places on your computer. If you're using a desktop computer, there should be USB ports on the front that you can use, instead of having to use the USB ports in the back. Some monitors have USB ports on the side, and if you're using a laptop, the USB ports may be on the sides of the computer or in the back. It doesn't matter what USB port you use, but to use the USB drive, you'll need to insert the USB drive into a USB port. So go ahead and insert the USB drive into a USB port, and I will do the same thing. Once we insert the USB drives, a dialog box will appear on the computer and we'll proceed. So here's the dialog box I mentioned. The computer recognizes that you've added a device to your computer, so a box called a dialog box appears. This is the autoplay dialog box, and you'll need to respond to this box. So you have some choices under general options. For example, open folder to view files. This would be used in the case that you had a USB drive that you had used before and you wanted to view the files, possibly because you wanted to edit a file. In this case, we don't have any files on our USB drive, so we're just going to close this window. We can still use the USB drive, it's just not necessary for us to open the folder to view the files. So you'll move to the X and click. Make sure you're in the Word window, viewing the list that we have created. Now that we have inserted the USB drive, and remember that can also be called a flash drive, we can save to the USB drive. That is important because if you do not save or store your file, you will not be able to open that file to edit it again. There are a couple of different ways to save. Let's begin by using the File tab method. Move your mouse to the File tab, the tab at the far left that displays with blue, and then click the File tab. You'll see a list of menu options on the left. click the Save button. The first time you save a file, a Save As dialog box will appear. Because I have a large screen, my Save As dialog box may be much larger than yours, but it still displays the same type of information. Notice that the default setting, because this is a computer with the Windows operating system, is to save to your Documents library. Remember, we are going to save to the flash drive so that you'll be able to open this document on any computer. To save to the flash drive, you most likely will have to scroll down until you can see the word Computer. The Computer section of the navigation bar allows you to change the storage location to your flash drive. Notice that my Computer section is expanded. That means that I can see a list of places where I can save. If your Computer section is not expanded, it is most likely collapsed. And let's discuss how we collapse or expand that Computer section. Whether it is expanded or collapsed, go ahead and hover your mouse over the small arrow to the left of the word Computer. Hover your mouse precisely so the arrow displays as a turquoise color. Next, click, and then click again. Notice that the arrow expands, for example, this view, or collapses, this is the collapsed view, the Computer section. This allows you to view or not view different sections here in the navigation bar. You want to make sure that you expand the Computer section so that you can choose your flash drive. So click on the arrow if you need to, and then I want you to notice that I may have different items in the Computer section and they may have different letters. These are different places in your computer where you could store, but we are specifically looking for your USB drive. Remember, it may have a different letter than mine. It may not be the letter F, and it may have a different name. Mine is called removable disk. Yours may have a different name, but your USB drive will always be the last item that displays in the Computer section. To indicate that you want to save it to the USB drive, click on the USB drive. You will then see a bluish-gray bar indicating that you have selected your USB drive. If you move to the top of the Save As dialog box, just under the word Save As, you will also see that it now displays your USB drive with whatever name that USB drive has. Next, you will go ahead and give the file a name. Click into the current name, and that name will be selected. Next, you can type a new name. Let's name it My Newbies List. Once you have named the file, you'll move your mouse down to the Save button and you'll click. Notice if we go to the top of the Word screen, the file name that we have just given this file displays, My Newbies List. After you've created and saved a file, you may decide that you want to make changes to the file. For example, we may want to add more items to our list. Remember, if you edit a file in some way, you'll have to save it again to make sure you save the changes. Let's add 2 more items to our list. Move your mouse after the word class and click so that your insertion point displays. Remember, you can then move your mouse out of the way. Press your Enter key, and let's add doctor's appointment to the list. Press Enter, and then add Visit Mary to the list. Because you've made changes, you should save your file called My Newbies List. Let me show you a quicker way to save rather than going to the File tab. In your Quick Access toolbar at the top left of the screen, there is a Save button. To save this file, move to the Save button and click. You have now saved the file. Notice that the first time you save a file, the Save As dialog box displays. That allows you to choose where you want to save the file, for example, your USB drive, and what name you want to give a file. After you've saved the file the first time, as you make edits to the file, you'll simply click Save, and it will save over the old version and replace it with the new version. When you're done working on a file, you may want to print the file. To print the file, we'll use the File tab. Move your mouse to the File tab and click, and next click Print. Notice that by default, one copy will print. If you wanted to print more than one copy, you could either use the up arrow, such as I am doing, or you could key the number of copies you want. I'm going to go ahead and change number of copies to 1. There are other settings inside the print area. If you'd like to learn more about those, you would want to take our Word 1 class. To print the file, you would click on the Print button. You may do that now if you're connected to a printer. If you're not connected to a printer, you do not need to print at this time. When I click the Print button, my file will print. I can remove it from the printer, and then it returns me back to my home screen. If you do not have a printer or you're not printing today, go ahead and click on the Home tab, and that will return you to where you began. When you're finished with the file and you've saved it and printed it, if you want to print it, you can go ahead and close it. To close the file, move to the File tab, and then in the menu, move to Close and click Close. If you had forgotten to save the file, you would receive a message from the computer asking if you wanted to save the file, and then you could click the Save button. Notice that this time I did not use the red X in the top right to close the window, and I just wanted to close the file we created, and then I wanted to continue working in Word. Let's talk about opening a file. If you want to open a file that you've saved, click the File button and then click Open. Next, find the file that you want to open in your flash drive. Remember that most often we click one time with our mouse button. But to open a program or a file, you will double click. So move to the file called My Newbies List and double click. And you have now opened that file. Let's make one more change and let's save that change. Click after the word Mary until your insertion point displays, and then press Enter. Next, key Walking Group. And because you've made a change, you'll need to save that change. So move your mouse to the Save button in the Quick Access toolbar and click. Next, let's close the file My Newbies List. We'll click File, and then we'll click Close. The list that we created was using a blank Word document. Word also comes with templates. Templates are pre-formatted documents that include the layout of the document and text. For example, you can find letter, resume, certificate, and flyer templates in Word. Let's create a certificate template because it will be quick for us to create the certificate, and then we can practice saving. To create a new document, whether it's a blank doc or a template document, you will want to move to the File tab. Go ahead and do this with me. Click File and then click New. You will see the words office.com templates. Your templates are actually located at the office.com site. Your templates will display below that area. You could look through the categories and find a template you wanted, or you can search for a template. Let's use the Search for Template method. To do this, move your mouse to the Search Office.com for Templates box and click. Notice that your insertion point flashes. We're looking for a certificate, so let's type certificate so that the program will search for a certificate. After you have typed in the word certificate, press your Enter key on your computer. You'll see there are some choices. I'd like you to choose the World's Best Award Certificate. Remember, to open a file, you will double click. If it doesn't work the first time, just try again. And now you have a certificate open. Templates have placeholders that you will replace with your information. To replace placeholder information, move to the first placeholder, in this case, name title, and click. Next, go ahead and type computer user. Usually in Word, when you want words to be in all caps, you'll have to press caps lock. In this case, the placeholder is already set to display in all caps, so you won't need to do that. Next, you'll add your name by clicking in the Recipient Name Here placeholder. You will want to capitalize your first name and your last name. The best way to do that is to press and hold down on the Shift key on the left-hand side of your keyboard, and then press the first letter of your first name. Next, release the Shift key and continue to type. Press a space and before you key your last name so that the first letter of your last name will be in all caps, press and hold the Shift key. Finally, let's replace the text in the Your Text Here placeholder. Remember, if your keying speed is slower than mine, you can always stop the course, fill in your certificate, and then return to the course. Now, this file is in the memory of the computer, but it's not saved. The quickest way to save it is to move to the Quick Access toolbar and click Save. The first time you save a file, it will take you to the Save As dialog box. Because we already saved a file to the flash drive during this work session, we can see at the top of the screen it shows that we are saving to our flash drive. And remember, flash drive, USB drive, those terms are interchangeable. So I use both those terms when I teach classes. Make sure that you save this file with a name. The current name is Doc1, and that is already selected, so you can simply type over that. So go ahead and type My Certificate. And when you're finished, you'll click the Save button. One last thing before we finish up with this class is we want to talk about the Save As command. So we know when we want to save a file, we click the Save button. Think back to when we created the list, because we also made changes to that file by adding more items to the list, and as we did that, we continued to press the Save button. In this case, we're going to use the Save As command because when we are finished, we want to have 2 copies of this certificate. We're going to create a certificate for somebody else. We're going to keep most of this information the same, but we are going to change the name for this certificate is awarded to. To do that, you will need to select the text. The easiest way to select text that you've keyed on your screen is to move your I-beam just to the left-hand side of the first letter in your selection, and then press and hold down your left mouse button and drag over the selection. Once you have it selected, you can type over it. So let's replace this with a different name. We'll replace it with the name Jane Doe. Remember to press and hold your Shift key and type the J, release the Shift key, type the rest of the name, press space, press the Shift key, and then type the last name, Doe. We're now going to use the Save As command because we want to keep the original My Certificate, but we want to have a different version of the certificate with Jane Doe's name. To save the file with a different name, move to the File tab and click. Next, click the Save As button. Notice that file name is selected, so we don't have to retype certificate. We'll simply delete the word My and add the words Jane Doe. To do this, your I-beam should be between the words My and certificate, and you will click. Next, you will press the backspace key on the keyboard 2 times, and then key Jane space Doe, and the word certificate should display. To finish this process, you will click Save. You can see at the top of the screen, you have now saved the Jane Doe certificate. You could print this if you wanted to, but for now, we're just going to close this file. To close the file, we'll go to the File tab, and then we'll click Close. Let's open the file again. To open the file, click the File tab, and then click Open. You can now see the 3 files that you have created today. Notice there is a date modified column that shows you the date and time the file was created. To open the Jane Doe certificate again, you'll move your mouse pointer to the file, Jane Doe certificate, and you will double click. And you have now opened that certificate. To close a file when you're done using it, go ahead and do this with me. You'll click the File tab and then you'll click Close. So we are now in Word, but we do not have a document open. And we are finished working with Word. So to close the Word program, you're going to move to the X on the top right and click. That will return you to the Windows desktop. It's always important when you're finished working at your computer and you're using a flash drive to remove it safely. To remove the flash drive safely from your desktop, move to the right-hand bottom of the screen, close to where the time and the calendar display, and look for the small arrow. Notice as I hover over the small arrow, it indicates that this is the area for hidden icons. It displays Show Hidden Icons. Click on the arrow, and then you want to look for the icon that has a small green circle and a white check mark. Notice as I hover over, it reads Safely Remove Hardware and Eject Media. Click, and then move to Eject Mass Storage, and then underneath it will show you the name of your flash drive. Mine's Removable Disk. Yours may have a different name, but regardless of the name, you'll click Eject Mass Storage. And when you see the message Safe to Remove Hardware, you can then remove your flash drive. It's important to complete the steps to remove the flash drive safely to make sure that you've saved all data that you've created or worked on during this work session. We are now finished with the Computer Newbies class. The next class in the series is Computer Newbies 2. In Computer Newbies 2, you will work with the Microsoft Office programs Word and Excel and review how to save and save as files. And you will also work in a part of the computer called the Windows Explorer to learn how to manage the files that you've saved. Thank you for taking the Computer Newbies pre-recorded class, and we look forward to working with you again.